Hi, I'm Owen from Rask Australia. Thanks for tuning in to the Rask Network. Before we get into today's show, there are a few things we have to go over. Firstly, what you're about to hear and see is limited to general information only. It's not personal financial advice like you'd get from a financial planner. Also, it's important to remember that past performance is not indicative of future performance. That means that anything that's happened in the past, or we say today, is not necessarily going to reflect what happens in the future. Lastly, please consider that any of the guests or myself are featuring on this program may have a financial interest in some of the products or shares mentioned. That's enough from me. I hope you enjoyed today's program. Kate, welcome to this episode of the Australian Finance Podcast.
It's great to be back, Owen, and for a special Christmas episode.
Yep, we're recording. So if you are on YouTube, hello, I'm waving at the camera. But if you're listening, this is our Christmas discussion. Bit of a recap.
Some of our highlights from the year.
Mm-hmm. And I know that you like this time of year. It even says it right here in the notes. It's Kate's favourite time of year.
Yeah, Christmas has a special place in my heart. And we're also going to talk about some general money tips, some Christmas present ideas that mostly revolve around books, but I mean, that's my favourite present. A little bit of things about the Christmas holidays and just talking a bit about what you can expect from us 2020 and beyond.
Cool.
2021. Oh my gosh.
This
Not
year's
ready.
gone quick. People don't count it because we're in lockdown for 6 months. But
I know, it's like, it feels like no time at all since we were recording a Christmas episode last year.
Yeah, I asked you before, off air, if we did the 5 money moves to make last Christmas, but I don't think we did. But we're going to do them in another episode.
Did it a few weeks ago, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so firstly, let's talk about the big changes in the financial world.
Yeah, so I think obviously COVID was massive this year, and I think there was a massive change in technology. I mean, we saw the prices of Zoom shares skyrocket overnight because suddenly everything was online, and I think that was a massive change because people were suddenly realizing they couldn't go to the bank branch or things like that. They had to do everything online. People were having to talk to their financial advisor over Zoom. They were having to, a lot of stuff was online already, but things I think went to the next level this year. Yeah,
and you know what, if I talk from an investing perspective, what really caught me off guard, or not off guard, I kind of expected this, but just to see it play out was people think because, the whole world's going to be at home, so therefore I should buy Zoom shares, right? That's what they think.
Yeah.
And that's not actually a rational decision because it takes many, many years for companies like Zoom to actually benefit from that. And this isn't a new thing. Like Zoom's been around for years. There's been heaps of examples like this. Like Amazon went up a huge amount on day one because they broke all these records for sales. And so when you're investing, it's all well and good to go and think, Zoom's going to change the world, but you have to ask yourself, is this sustainable? And I think the one thing that I'm coming back to from a technology point of view is how much of this stuff that we're doing now, as a result of COVID, is going to be around in 2021.
Yeah.
And then in many years to come. I think most of it will. But I think people got a bit of ahead of themselves.
Yeah, and it's also been a great chance this year. I think a lot of people have had a chance to save extra money because they haven't been having to pay for public transport, lunches and coffees at work, all sorts of things.
Like a few $100s on fuel every month.
Yeah. And all those impulse purchases. I know that was even just thinking last year, just walking around the city on my lunch breaks, it would be really hard not to see something and go in and buy it.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I don't really have that. Maybe at
Same
Bunnings,
desire.
At Bunnings, I might. You'd let me free in Bunnings for a day.
But you've
damage done.
probably got a loyalty card at Bunnings.
Actually,
by now,
I do.
haven't you?
I did get a power pass during COVID, so I could actually get in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So funny story. I actually hired a ute to make me look more legit, like a tradie. Got a permit and then got my power pass. So I walked straight in, no questions asked. But yeah, I mean, that's a big thing, right? Like people have effectively, I think, most people have taken that impulse or discretionary spending that you do, and they've taken it to like the local shop or local market or whatever it might be, which I think is a really good thing because I was talking to someone on the weekend, and he was saying that rather than buy his meat at everything's Bunnings. No, rather than buy his meat at Woolies, he would just go down to the butcher that he's never been to before, and now he just keeps shopping there because it supports the local business and keeps people employed and what have you. So I think there's a few changes that way, but that's been good for people's budgets and it's been good for the local businesses.
Another thing I wanted to talk about is the market crash that happened and then suddenly was over back in March this year. And I think that was really interesting as a fairly new investor. I've only been investing for maybe 4 years now. That was the first time I'd seen that level of volatility. I think there was a small crash back, like small movement back in end of 2018, was it?
Yeah, there've been a few smaller falls. You probably wouldn't call them crashes. So there's no like rule of law on this, but generally if the whole market falls 20%, that's considered a crash. You know, you wouldn't be the only one who has experienced that type of fall for the first time. It was the first one for me in this regard because it was actually the fastest crash in history.
Yeah.
So it was the fastest fall, like intraday falls in like the Dow Jones, S&P 500, the ASX 200 here in Australia. And so the velocity of it caught people off guard. A lot of the people, like these fancy financial modelers and whatever, that have these like models and strategies in place. If this happens and do that, most of them didn't work.
Yeah.
And it just highlights again that it's not, and to your point about it, you know, it was a crash, but now we're back. We're actually ahead of where we were last year.
It was over in...
Yeah. and that highlights that in my opinion, there's no point avoiding them. Don't spend any more time thinking about it than if the market goes up, I'm going to buy some, buy some shares or ETFs or whatever. If the market's flat, I'm going to buy some. And if it falls, I'm going to buy more.
Yeah.
Like there's no selling involved there. It's just invest. Doesn't matter how you do it, just do it. And I remember recording, I was sitting in the back room at my in-laws' house when I recorded that podcast by myself. It was about like, will house prices fall 32%?
Yeah, I remember that one when I was supposed to have gone on my European trip.
Exactly around that time.
Your solo episode.
And I remember because there was these forecasters that come out and said that this is going to be a big thing, you know, house prices by our modelling is going to fall 32%. Well, guess what? That did not happen. In maybe no sense of the word did that happen. Maybe you could say apartments in the city, like here in Melbourne, are pretty bad.
Yeah.
But it didn't happen. In fact, it has gone the opposite direction. So the market crash that didn't happen.
And no one could have expected that. And I thought it was really interesting just to sort of test, because for the last few years I've thought of myself, as a relatively high risk investor. I'm comfortable with market volatility, but this was able to put that into practice and see how I felt and how my emotions were seeing my investment accounts go down 20, 30%. Like that was pretty crazy, because often we think we're high risk investors until we're not.
Yeah.
And stuff hits the fan. So, I mean, it was a great opportunity to test that. I mean, the sad side of this was seeing people posting about switching their super to cash in March. And that was kind of devastating to see, because like knowing what we know about super, they probably wouldn't have switched back into investments at any time. And so they switched at a loss in March, and then they've probably left it in cash this whole year, which is going to have a massive effect on their long-term wealth.
Yeah, Max, who's our analyst who's based in Brisbane, but he's coming to Melbourne next year. He worked for a super company throughout March, and he said the amount of calls that he got that people didn't understand. He said he remembered someone that was like 26 years old. I'm just taking words out of Max's mouth. And she rang up and she's like, yeah, I don't know about my investment options. I'm 50% cash and 50% conservative. And his words were to the effect of, that is the single most like riskiest financial decision anyone could ever make in their lifetime, is being in that allocation at that age, because they've got 40 years for compounding, and that's probably going backwards a lot of the time. So that was pretty scary. You know what was interesting is that I get most people do run away from these situations. I was definitely running towards it. Like I was super excited when all this was happening, because from an investor's perspective, if you disregard what people tell you is that like the stock market's like gambling, things just go up and down randomly, and you actually think about the businesses that are behind the share prices. Like Zoom's a good example. Zoom, I don't know the chart, I don't have it in front of me, but I imagine Zoom's share price would have fallen throughout March, and then people would have been like, oh, well, the world's not going to blow up. Maybe people will actually do stuff online, and then all of a sudden it's gone up. And what I was doing is just focusing on the businesses. If you just focus on all the things that you can buy, it actually gets like super exciting. It's like going into a candy store, and instead of having like a sales ticket here and there, it's like the whole wall is on a sales ticket, and it's really exciting because you're thinking, oh my gosh, I've got this money that I saved up. Now it's just about how much do I buy, not like which one. It's just like how many can I buy, and I found that really exciting. But that was a big thing in a lot of people's lives. A lot of people lost jobs out of this.
Yeah.
I think you said earlier on the year that it probably made you reconsider how much cash you put aside.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely still think in the way I invest, I'm a high risk investor, but then I'm also, when it comes to having quite a substantial emergency fund, I think I've become even more conservative in that approach. I don't know if I don't even know what type of investor that makes me. I'm sort of high risk with my investments, but I'm very conservative with the amount of cash I keep aside. And I think after everything that happened this year, that probably will stay with me for a while. I remember when we talked to Mel Brown about that earlier this year, it was quite interesting to reflect on probably how my perspective on this has changed. And I don't know if that was part of, like, I was supposed to go away, my plans completely changed, I took a redundancy, so I think everything was a lot less certain than it probably felt at the start of this year. I mean, in January I had all these plans and I thought it sort of had planned out the year, thought I knew what was going to happen, and nothing that's happened this year I could have imagined at all. So I think that's maybe made me a bit more conservative in terms of that emergency fund and having substantial savings rather than putting as much as I can into my investments.
It's funny, because it took Morgan Housel, I guess, so long to come out with this book that everyone wanted to read, and we've read it. And one of the things that he says in the book is that the true value of having cash is not necessarily the interest that you receive, but it's the ability to use that cash when things either go bad, like March, you might lose your job, or you might be able to put more into your investments at that time. And then you're getting the investments at better prices. Therefore, even if you don't invest that cash this year and make a return on it this year, maybe you do next year because you get a better price and you put more in.
Yeah.
And so that's something from personal finance. Personal finance meets investing, because you have this imaginary number of like interest that you might be earning on that cash. That if the market falls, that's when you start earning that interest, if you could think about it like that. Whereas, traditionally we just think of, I've got $50,000 or $100,000 put away in cash. I don't know who you are, maybe that's you. And that's like a year and a half. Is that too conservative, that cash balance? Because I'm not earning anything on it. But maybe it's not that conservative. Maybe you still are a growth investor or a risk-seeking investor, but it will just take time for you to use all of that in the right environment. So next year, if the property market does indeed fall, you think, hey, I've got enough for a deposit, I can go and put that in there now.
Yeah.
And that's the return that you get from having that cash, not the interest that you earned along the way.
I probably don't want to calculate how much I might have lost in potential returns by keeping it on the side, but I think it did help as a sleep at night factor.
Totally, yeah, that counts. There's one more point here, Kate, that you've got for big changes to the world of finance in 2020.
Yeah, well, this is probably the Australian world of finance, but I thought it was really interesting that Vanguard Australia finally decided to hit up the retail investment space. It's typically been mostly through advisors and super funds, and their website has always been pretty stale.
It leaves a lot to be desired, that's for sure.
So I thought it's really interesting. They opened up sort of their personal investor program where you could go directly through them and skip the brokerage. And from what I've heard, they're planning on launching retail super products in the next year or so. Yeah. They've been hiring a lot of people. I mean, I've seen the jobs popping up on LinkedIn.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, lots of people, and they're hiring a lot of customer support, because if you've got lots of retail clients, you need a substantial customer support base.
Yeah.
So I thought that's really interesting, and hopefully it starts making more brokers in terms of brokerage fees more competitive, and maybe also keeps the super funds honest and gets the fees down there, because Vanguard can do it cheaper.
Yeah, well, yeah. But I think the last couple of years, the big super funds have been in-housing a lot of their stuff to try and preempt some of this type of thing. But yeah, it's one of those things where, we know Vanguard is probably probably the best index fund provider in the world. And so for them to do it in a super environment means you don't need a self-managed super fund or whatever. You can do it maybe directly with them. I'm not saying that we recommend that or anything, but it's just an interesting development, and one that we'll watch closely.
But we even spoke earlier this year that some of the super funds were actually increasing their admin fees, even doubling them. So it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Even the most favourite industry super funds that had traditionally the cheapest fees, they might have changed in the last year. I mean, I saw a month ago my super fund said they were increasing their admin fees, and it might be $1.50 a month, but that has a big impact over a long term. So it's definitely something you have to keep on top on.
One of the reasons that happens is that obviously the fees for the fund go up, and so like their costs go up and they have to stay in business. So like, for example, when they had the $10,000 super withdrawal, someone actually has to be on the other side of that phone call to say, yeah, you have this much in super and this is how it works. Do you want to apply now, kind of thing.
And that was quite an administrative burden.
Oh, yeah.
From the super
Some of the super
funds
funds were hiring 50 or 100 people just in one job ad. Just, we need people. So that obviously has to be paid for by someone, and that's the members of those big super funds. Anyway, Kate, what are your highlights for 2020?
Yeah, so I was putting this episode together, reflecting. It was actually quite funny to see how the year had gone on. I remember back in January, we had our first listener event for the Australian Finance Podcast, which was exciting, and I was absolutely terrified at speaking and presenting in front of an audience, but we got through it. I don't think I looked at a single face. I just sort of stared at the back of the room.
No, you did well.
I was so terrified, but it was amazing to meet some listeners, and we were hoping and planning to do a whole heap of them throughout the year, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, maybe 2021. I would back us in.
Yeah.
There are some investor things that we have in the works for that, actually, but for the finance podcast in this series, we want to do it. So pretty much as soon as we can have people in a room, we'll start planning for this. So that was exciting this year, though.
It's crazy to think that was 10 months ago.
Yeah.
And that's
scary. Yeah. But it was about 130, 140 people in the room.
Yeah.
We're lucky everyone didn't rock up. There was 350 RSVPs, and the room was more than full at 130, 140. So we love to see you all in person. And so if we come to your city, please just come along. It'll most likely be free anyway. So it costs you nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also the highlight for the year was that although I didn't go on my European adventure that I've been planning and saving for a few years, I think the year just completely changed direction for me, and I had opportunity to try some new things, work at some different companies, and sort of dig more into helping people learn about personal finance.
You're doing a great job.
Also, I had the opportunity to write a testimonial for a book by financial advisor Paul Benson called Financial Autonomy. So I actually got my name on the back cover of a book that is in Dymocks, that I think, apart from writing a book, getting your name on the back's like the next best thing. So,
well, you don't have to do the hard work.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of bookshelves at home. That's probably my guilty pleasure. So that was very exciting.
So just having your name, like a quote, is it a quote?
Yeah.
Like a testimonial, and then your name.
Yeah, like you know how people read the book and write about it. Yeah. It's on the back cover. So that was pretty exciting. Also creating the financial independence course that is launching
probably in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
In the next few weeks.
Yeah.
I think it was quite a much more of a big effort than we thought. I was working on it back when I was made redundant, and I had a bit of time on my hands, and I think it was like 50 or 60 pages of content.
Yeah. Speaking of books. So, you started it. So that would have been like, for context, that would have been April?
Yeah, I think it was back in April. We were chatting about, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll put something together, and it just sort of kept growing. So, I mean, the idea of financial independence has completely changed my perspective, and I really hope it's a great resource for everyone once it's up. I mean, the content's in the back end. We've just got to finalise a few things, but that's been a big highlight for my year. And also, we've mentioned a few times now, but reading Morgan Housel's new book, The Psychology of Money, was a pretty cool read this year.
We actually missed out on interviewing him weekend before last, but we're hoping to get him back on the show. He's a very, very busy man.
Yes.
From all around the world. He's my favourite financial writer, not just author, but writer. He's brilliant, huh?
So if we play our cards right, he might be on the show next year. We'll see how we go.
And we'll be giving away some books and some gifts, you could say. So just keep listening to the podcast over the next few weeks. Because we will be doing a bit of a giveaway, and of course we're going to give away finance-related stuff.
Yes,
not just like chocolates or whatever. It's going to be finance-related things. So, if you're looking for some things and you think we might be able to, give you a gift, make sure you participate. So just to rehash that, the second last point there, Kate, about the FIRE course. This is going to be huge. So I had the honour of proofreading Kate's course, and it's nothing like a book, but it is, because you go on a journey with Kate and she talks about it in the first person, which is really cool, because most of the time when you do courses, it's a bit weird. Like it's almost like you're being lectured to, whereas this is more taking you on an exploration or discovery of what the FIRE movement means, the different types of FIRE and the strategies that go into it, and then all of the resources that come with it. So Kate's done all of that, and it's a totally free course.
Yep.
I remember when I was giving you feedback on it a few weeks ago, you said, we could charge for this course if we really want to. I'm like, yeah, we totally could, but it's so good, we should get it in the hands of as many people as we can. So yeah, this is a huge thing that Kate's been working on. So, even if I know there's some like perceptions about what FIRE stands for, but it is not about that. It's not about like making you a dyed-in-the-wall FIRE supporter.
Yeah.
It's about just focusing on you and retiring on your terms if that's what you choose to do, right?
Yeah, and I'm definitely not a frugal person, so the course doesn't come across that way at all. It's not really about cutting every expense to the bare bones. It's a lot about everything from negotiating a salary and upskilling yourself, finding other passions you enjoy, designing your dream life, and also helping other people once you've got to the end of you've gone quite a bit on your personal finance journey, actually how to give back and help your community.
Yeah, it's a really special course. I'm going to say it's the best course that we have on the education site. So that's on the Rask education site. We'll be blowing up your socials with it.
We'll let you know once it's live.
Yeah, and you can enroll in it. There's no deadlines, but there are some checklists and things that you can use to kind of, help whip yourself into gear over Christmas. So really good one.
Okay, your highlights.
My highlights. So Kate went through and filled out one of the dot points for me, which was getting chickens. I now have 3 chickens, April, May and June, and buying a house.
Is that what you called them?
Yeah, my little sister named them. So April, May and June. And it matches up because one of them's like a lighter coloured and then they get darker. So it's like closest to summer is April. And then June is obviously, towards winter, darker coloured. That was a highlight from my partner and I, Sarah and I. I think, it was an interesting process going through the house buying process. It's nothing like buying shares where you can just open an account and buy.
It's much more extensive and expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive. What I was really, and Sarah was taken back by this as well, is how slow and clunky the process is. It's crazy. And what I found really concerning was how bad some of the professionals are, so-called professionals. It is tragically bad. Like they can lead people, they can misinform people. Like we had, I can say this, we had one broker, a very, very first broker, who, we had some great brokers, but one in particular, we asked her, can you explain what a comparison rate is? Knowing full well that I know what a comparison rate is. And she didn't even explain it to us. Yeah. She just, I personally believe it's because she didn't know. If she did know, she just couldn't be bothered telling us. And that is by far, in my opinion, the single most important number that anyone needs to know when they're trying to assess whether they're getting a good deal or not. And they called it the term rate on this stupid broker document that we looked at. And it was so confusing. And we're getting different pieces of information from everyone. And you really need, if you're not financially savvy at all, you do need someone, or you need to sit down and do like a course or read a book and actually educate yourself, because you can get it so wrong. Yeah. But even little things like on the day of settlement, like if you paid more in your deposit than what the actual deposit required for your loan, do you get money back, or where does that go? Or who disperses the money? Do you apply for the first home owner grant? Yeah. No, you don't. Your conveyancer does. So how do you know that? Like no one tells you unless they're really like forthcoming. So that was a highlight, but it was also illuminating because for a non-typical borrower like my wife and I, it was pretty hard, to be honest. Yeah. So prepare for that. What was the other thing? Oh yeah, here we go. Coming back from an NDE, so near-death experience. Not me personally, like not physically or psychologically, but just with the business, we had a massive hiccup. As a startup business, things go wrong. In November last year, 2019. And it pretty much put our business out of action until March. And we went from, a full team, writers, everyone, to just myself. Yeah. And I was going to take a job somewhere else, and it was Sarah, my partner, who convinced me not to do that. And then we're in this building now, for those of you that are on the camera, it's over that way. We're in this beautiful office now. We've got some fantastic partners into our business who could see what we were trying to do. And they effectively come in and scooped us up and said, yep, come into our office. Here's everything you need. We're going to take care of you. And the business has come back stronger than ever. unbelievable. And we did a lot of things when we were down on the skeleton crew. We did a lot of things which we would never have done if there wasn't the chance that we were going out of business.
Yeah.
Because the whole time, as you know, Kate, with this, the business that we're working on and what we've created is that it doesn't, like, financial incentives for me come second. What's most important is that you help people and you leave, like, you make a mark and you help. And so we did things like we created our education site, which now has all the courses on it, but we wouldn't have done that if we were still in our stride before. So we've come back stronger, and I'm super, super thrilled with that. And then we said to my wife and I have always been scared that having an investment business where people like buy your research because they want to invest, the scariest thing would be a market crash.
Yeah.
And we said after we went through all of this, threw all of our money into this, we were down to $0 literally in our bank account. We had all this money outstanding that we owed for the business. And then we said to ourselves, wouldn't it be funny if we finally got back into business and a market crash happened? That was March.
Yeah.
That was March. And then we came back and it did crash. But I think thanks to all the good juju that we'd given to so many people through our brand and whatever, as soon as we did come back into business, we had this influx of people that wanted to join and support the business, and team members that wanted to join. So that's the second thing. I know I'm rambling on here. Obviously, meeting great people. You and I are very, very fortunate. Yeah. We meet some tremendous people.
Yeah, I think this year was just an amazing array of guests we were able to get on the show, and I think that was partly due to COVID because people had a lot more time on their hands, and I found people I emailed, I had a pretty good success rate with the people I wanted on the show and getting a response back.
Yeah.
I think only one time we got a really outright rejection, but most of the time people are really willing to come on and share their knowledge and experiences. So I think you've listed a few of them here.
Like Peter Singer, Steve, and I'm going to do his surname not justice, so Steve Killalay, I think is how you pronounce it. Andrea Clark, who, as we record this, is on the podcast today, hitting the airwaves. On the Investors podcast, I spoke to someone called Luke Trickett. He's a little small investor from Queensland who speaks really profound things. And then Rob Milner. There's been so many amazing people. Just being able to meet with them for this is wonderful. And to your point about rejections and whatever, we don't actually get that many. And I think it's partly because, we do have some great listeners now and they leave comments. One of the comments, the only time we've been rejected is because we didn't have 750 was reviews.
Yeah, that was the criteria to get.
And we've only got 200 and something.
Yeah.
So, and we don't really ask for reviews on iTunes. So we don't feel like you have to give anything, but that was and I thought that was such an odd thing to say, only if you've got 750 reviews. We could just go and spam iTunes with reviews.
Yeah, and I do see some podcasts doing prizes or giving away cash or vouchers for people leaving iTunes reviews. And
that's probably why, right? That's
probably not something I ever want to do.
Yeah.
I want the reviews to be honest. I mean, we got our first 1-star review on Apple Podcasts this year because we didn't talk about all the different types of trading on one of our podcasts.
My bad.
But I mean, you got to deal with this when you're putting content into the world, and I'm just really appreciative that everyone's been keeping in and tuning in with us this year. It's been amazing to have you along this journey, and especially during COVID when it's felt like we've had no community. It's been more important than ever to connect with people virtually.
Absolutely. Well said. Yeah, so I'll be quick, my second last one. Just building out our team. We went from myself being the only employee back again in March to now there's about 5 to 10 of us.
Yeah.
And heaps of writers that contribute to our site as well. And heaps of people around the periphery that contribute to what we're trying to do. So super stoked with that. Really just being able to surround yourself with really fun, energetic, smart, talented people is just such a pleasure. Anyway, last one, which I couldn't go without, which is getting Kate to join the team. So for those of you who don't know, Kate joined us, 3 months ago now?
Yeah.
Formally? Yeah, 3 months. So Kate and I haven't actually worked together, air quotes, because she's always been doing her thing, I've been doing my thing.
I was working for other people
Yeah.
up until
up until
3 or so months ago.
Yeah,
So.
and I think it was a big decision for Kate because, just using that different part of your brain, the creative side, and then actually thinking that you can make a job from that is a risk.
Yeah.
And I think it's come around to you now that you can actually do that, and you are really creative. So definitely a highlight for me is being able to see you grow over the year. Oh, no, it's true. I think if anyone was to go back a year from now and look at like the way you interact with people, like even you said earlier on going to the event and presenting there, like I feel like next year you're going to come back even stronger with that skill set. And so that's been really great. That's been a highlight for me. It's definitely the number one highlight for this series. So
I think as you said to one of our other teammates before, you just got to push yourself a little bit further each time. And I think that's what we've tried to do this year. I mean, I'm trying to do some video stuff, which is pretty terrifying as well. So that's the next challenge. Yeah,
so you can jump on YouTube and support Kate. Give us some good feedback. Cool. Okay, so now we've done a bit of a recap. Now we're going to talk about some general money saving tips
for Christmas time and some Christmas present ideas. So I think the major money saving tips for me are writing down who you actually need gifts for, putting a potential budget for each of them, because I mean, we've all got those people, like you probably want to give some person a better gift than maybe another person, or you want to allocate you got a set amount to spend for Christmas, you want to allocate accordingly. So avoiding impulse shopping. I mean, this episode's coming out after the Black Friday sales, so hopefully you've already managed to get what you needed at a discount. But just being careful there. And I also think, as one of our colleagues does, and I was talking to her the other day, she has quite a large family, so she does a Kris Kringle style where each person, I think it was $200, and you buy one gift. One
really good gift as opposed to $10 ones or $20. Yeah, okay.
I mean, 30 people is quite a lot of people, so I probably wouldn't want to be buying 30 gifts, but I think that's a really good idea. And if you can approach that conversation with your family, I mean, maybe it's too late this year, but maybe it's something you discuss after this Christmas. Hey, next year, why don't we do it this way? Or why don't we do a Christmas that everyone has to buy something from a small business or has to be handmade? I know quite a few families have sort of made that decision this year. I mean, I've really focused on supporting small businesses because I think that's more important than ever. I mean, they've had a horrible year from the fires in January and onwards. So, it's actually been really fun finding small businesses because they're things and getting gifts for people that I know they wouldn't have heard of
they're
or
unique
seen before.
Because they're from a small business, right?
Yeah, and also just finding... And I found Instagram was a great way to find small businesses. It's Facebook isn't where it's at for business pages. I think it's definitely Instagram, and Instagram's added so many features to help you shop now, so it's easier than ever.
We often talk about this, right? That it's important to buy experiences, not material items. If I look back on my childhood, I'm picturing my Christmases right now in my head with my family. I don't remember opening something out of a box as the special thing. I remember just going to my grandma's house or going to my grandma and granddad's house and everyone being there and it being hot. You're having barbecues. I remember my auntie would always bring a bucket of KFC chicken, like because it was never open on Christmas Day. She bought the day before. Everyone thought it was the most like, that's just so lazy. I was like, you are the best person in my life right now. And I remember the experience. I don't remember what I pulled out of the box. Of course, we did like the Santa thing or whatever. But I don't know. Is that what you like? Do you remember the presents or the?
No, I don't. I remember the first time I got one of those portable CD players, just
like
because that was my first
piece
of tech.
Yeah.
But apart from that, not really.
Yeah.
I just remember like the Christmases, we might have done it in a different location or at someone else's house. I think when I was young, I had all the extended family had one big Christmas together, and that stands out to me. So it's definitely, I remember the location, the people, the funny things that happened. The one Christmas I got stung by a bee. Just like random things. And I remember the food, like if often we've got that one person in the family that cooks this memorable dish and they do it every year, and like you really remember that. So I think that's a good thing to keep in mind. It's the event that's more important than the
if you can't
items.
If you can't afford to get everyone gifts, if you only have a limited budget, you just try and be creative and just remember that the most important thing no matter what your budget is that you provide an environment where you're all just kind of happy and carefree for an hour or 2 hours or a day or a few days if you're lucky enough to get away for a while. That's what's really important. And, maybe next year, if you didn't have enough money this year to save up for gifts for whatever reason, next year you can try the KK, or you can try doing something different and setting out a plan to put some money aside as one of those saver accounts or something like that.
Yeah, and I think we said last year, no one in your family or your friends wants you to go into debt for them over Christmas.
No way, yeah.
I mean, if they do, you got to rethink that. But I know I don't want my loved ones to spend money they can't afford, and I would never ask that of them. And I've sort of in the past have sort of indicated that at certain times. And also another gift to think about is how can you give someone your time? And I think that's really important. Like if they've got young kids, can you say, my gift to you is like a couple of weekends of babysitting? Like that's probably the best gift for them, because babysitting is really expensive. Or maybe like offering to give them a weekend helping them with their garden, or if they need to build a chicken coop. Like Owen's very good at building chicken coops, so he might be
if you want one, let me know. It's very expensive though.
So I just think sometimes time is the most important gift, and that's something to consider.
Yep, and that is, I think, the old you give someone a gift certificate and it's got one night of babysitting on it. Yeah,
those coupons that kids used to give, but actually following through. I remember I think I gave them, but I don't think I actually did them when they got redeemed. Car wash.
I don't remember giving you that. Cool. Okay, so in terms of presents, there are some great ideas here. You've gone above and beyond, Kate. So we know what one of them's going to be, but what are some of the things that you're going to give to people, or you think that are personal finance related other people can give?
So I think books are a great gift to give to friends and family, even as KK and personal finance books. Sometimes you can give the right book to the right person at the right time, and that can change everything for them. I'm sure that, and we know that the Barefoot Investor as a Christmas gift has been a massive change for a lot of people in past years. And sometimes it's just one book might not work. It might not work a few years in a row, but suddenly you might have the right thing for them. And I think it's a low cost way. Most books are like $20. You might be able to find them cheaper at Book Depository.
Audible, if you want an ebook, to listen in, you can give 2 free for the first month. So
you can gift Audible books to people now. And I think that's a great gift idea, and it's affordable. So I guess I'll just rattle off a few. I'm going to post an article on Rask Media as well, and include that in the show notes so you can read a bit more about each one. But some of the highlights that came out this year are The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, Money School by Lacey Phillips, and she actually came on the podcast earlier this year, so you can try before you buy there. I've been reading recently How to Decide by Annie Duke. That's more about making decisions, but I think that's a really important part of finance as well. And that one actually was quite an interactive book and had lots of activities and sort of thinking exercises for you to do.
Cool.
Shareaplicity also came out this year by Danielle Ecuva. I may have said that wrong.
I'll take your word for it. Shareaplicity. What's that about? You've told me about it before.
So it's not about ETFs, it's just about investing in Australian shares and the research and learning those skills. So if you know someone that's really interested in that, it's probably not for someone that has no idea about personal finance. It's a bit more advanced. I had to look up some things, like I didn't know everything in that book, but that was a really nice approach. And she was very simple and straightforward and explained things really well.
Cool.
Financial Autonomy by Paul Benson.
I've heard it's got a good quote on the back.
As I mentioned before. And always just give property a bit of love. Our friend Nicole Hattow's Smashed Avocado. I think that came out last year, but it's an oldie but a goodie.
Yeah, she's coming out with another one.
Not that old, but...
yeah, it's still relevant. She was at the event. She presented at the event earlier this year.
Yeah,
so she was great.
That's definitely a great one, and it's a nice book cover for putting under the tree.
Yeah, it is. Those are some great books. Again, I'll just reiterate that I listened to The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel on Audible, so an audiobook. It's the first audiobook I've ever listened to, because I've always been like, if you're going to read a book, you got to read a book. Paper version, none of this Kindle crap. It's got to be the hardcover book.
Yeah.
But now, his book was perfect for that, because Morgan's book sometimes has, or often has, short stories as examples of like what not to do, or like what's important and what's not important. And it was perfect for the audiobook because it's not so intense and like, you know, this is the table and where do you fall in this quadrant? It's short stories that you can just go, wow, as you're listening to, and you're doing the gardening or you're making dinner or something. Really good book. Like I said, I got it through Audible. Morgan probably doesn't want me to say this. Got it through Audible free. I got 2 books free for the first 30 days.
You just got to remember to cancel those things if you do.
I'll probably keep it, to be honest, because it's that good. I can see why they give the first 2 away for free. So it was like $60 worth of value for nothing. So
I think it's a really good way. My library had Belinda Audio for free with the Melbourne City Library. If you're a Melbourne person, I think most libraries probably have something like this, but you can listen to so many audiobooks for free, and they're not weird old ones. They're all the recent books that you could want. So that's a great way to, if you're not really keen on reading a finance book, there's quite a few audio versions. I mean, maybe not all the charts and tables will translate that well, but the general essence is there. And so if you're on the train, that's a good idea.
Cool. Okay, so before we get to this next section, you're going to give us some other ideas. What I want to say to listeners is that please send us in your ideas if you've got some great Christmas gifts, if you have like gift ideas, or if you have presents and some strategies for getting those presents, or just different ways to make money and to give people items that they're going to value. Send it to us. Jump into our Facebook group, which we'll put a link in the show notes to, and share it in there. Or just email us and then we'll try and share them out whichever way we can. So
and they're not just for Christmas. Like you can use these next year as well for gifts. But these are some I've just discovered this month for Christmas. But there was this cool company called Crackle. They do all sorts of different caramel popcorn. There was like a gingerbread one and a rosemary, which would look really cool on a platter. So I thought, if you want something small for a stocking or for a friend or for a colleague, that was quite a fun idea. And they were really like all homemade and stuff like that. So that was really nice. Our friend Alicia from Sweet Bakes, she came on the podcast earlier this year. She has cooked some amazing cakes throughout
I have
lockdown.
seen some recently.
And her Christmas range is wonderful. I mean, hopefully there's still time to get in, but she's doing beautiful cakes and all sorts of gifting things. So
that's Sweet Bakes.
Yeah.
Yep, on Instagram.
There's 99th Monkey, which does lots of homemade nut butters, peanut butters, and variations on that, like the almond cashew butters, and so they're all homemade. I think it's a Melbourne business because it got there pretty quick. But anyway, they're
don't give it to an anaphylactic.
No, they're doing gift packs. So that was a perfect gift for some family members.
Cool.
Neptune Blanket. So
These are all so cool, the names. Neptune Blanket. Tell me more.
I really hope no one in my family actually listens to this podcast before Christmas because I'm giving it away. But they do everything from those weighted blankets.
Oh, yeah.
But they also do like spiky mats that have all these little plastic spikes that you can lie down and it sort of releases pressure.
They're meant to be so good.
Yeah, yes. So that was a perfect gift for one family member.
How much does one of these spiky things cost?
I think it was like 50 or 60, but
they
were having sales, and maybe they'll have a Boxing Day sale. So it could be
a
good gift. The quick flick, if you're wanting a gift for a female, they had a eyeliner stamp. So if you like doing the eyeliner, you can actually stamp it on, which I thought was really cool.
Oh, okay.
So that's probably not something Owen will need. But they have all sorts of
another
other
life outside of work.
things. And then there's also Hey Tiger Chocolate, which is a beautiful artisan chocolate company. They really support the chocolate growers, and they donate money to charity. And there was a gingerbread one, and there was like a strawberry. They were just beautiful. So even if you just have look at their Instagram and just the videos that they're making the chocolate, and I have
that's Christmas enough.
I have tested one of them. That was supposed to be gifted, but I may have eaten the whole block, and it was just amazing. Like their Christmas gingerbread one was.
So that's Australian?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And even the packaging, it came with like an ice block in the box when it got delivered, so nothing was melted or damaged, and beautiful packaging as well.
Cool. So Hey Tiger Chocolate, I think we can put some notes.
Yeah, I'll put them all in the show notes.
Yeah, because there's so many there that it's just so good.
Did you have any?
I didn't have any. I haven't done any Christmas shopping yet, so I'm so guilty. But my wife and I said, this is the first year in 4 years, 3 or 4 years, where we've had 2 incomes. So I've gone without a wage for so long. So we're going to double our budget for our family members. So
That's exciting.
one of the things, I can give it away. One of the things is I'm going to get an RM Williams belt. So just a belt for someone, family. But also we have a lot of things now where, you know, you can get hotel rooms and Airbnbs and things like that pretty cheap. So there's a few of those in the works too.
Yeah.
Got a couple of vouchers for hotels and that sort of stuff lined up.
That'd be lovely.
Just basic, but people just need to get out of the house. And some people that we know
Yeah.
need just time alone together. So that's what we're trying to do there. And we just bought my sister, we gave her all the books for Harry Potter.
Oh, lovely.
So we're going to have to think of something else now for Christmas. But yeah, I don't have any.
What about you'll get the Fantastic Beasts?
Oh yeah,
book.
yeah. I definitely could do that. But she's about 7. Is there 6 or 7 books? She's about 4 or 5 of the way through. So
It's good effort.
yeah, for a 10-year-old, it's pretty good. Okay, Christmas food. You got some strategies for people. This is coming to the end, guys. Christmas food suggestions.
Yeah, so I'm just my big suggestion is delegate a different dish or course to everybody. I mean, that's what we're doing in my family this year. Everyone's responsible for everything from entree to dessert to alcohol.
Yep, cool.
And so I think everyone having a role and at least playing some part, even younger people someone could create the Christmas crackers or something like that. Although homemade Christmas crackers never really work the same because they don't have the gunpowder spark. But yeah, I have done the toilet paper Christmas crackers creation before. Yeah. It's a bit of a letdown, but at least it's a way to get people involved.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I'm actually doing the entree, the classic Aussie prawn cocktail dish this year.
Is that just go to Coles or Woolies?
Get some prawns, shell
get
them, get some shredded
you shell
lettuce.
them first? You don't make them shell their own? The guests, like the people at Christmas?
Oh, I don't know.
You can make it.
I've never done it before.
If you wanted to be lazy, you could just be like, here's a bag of prawns.
I don't know. I just envisioned
here's cocktail sauce, go for it.
I envisioned the lettuce in like a little dish with the prawns over the side.
Oh, that's very fancy. Yeah,
the cocktail sauce in the middle.
Yeah.
I know you make it with tomato sauce, and then maybe I can fancy it up somehow.
Yep.
Maybe put some mango in, or
oh yeah, why not?
I don't know. I haven't made it before, so I'll have to learn in a few weeks.
Cool.
Yeah, but that's probably the main things. You got any tips for?
Well, again,
the meal itself?
I feel like I'm a bit of a letdown in this one, but no, we are on dessert, and when I say we, it's me assisting the head chef, who is Sarah, in the kitchen, and we have rum balls, like all the easy stuff. So rum balls, a cheesecake. We've got brownies, hedgehog. So it's just pretty much chocolate and cheesecake in our house.
Sugar,
so
cream overload.
Yeah, put it all in and just see how it goes. But yeah, we've got desserts for about 15 people, so it's going to be double serves of everything. But that's if I come up with any good recipes, I'll put them out. But trust me, you don't want to take my word for it. So one last thing, which is on Christmas holidays, we're going to have some episodes for people. We're going to have some unique episodes, particularly in January. Very unique, which is going to be really cool. And we've got some tips and tricks for people to save money and make money.
Yeah, and we'll have an episode just before the New Year's coming out with setting your goals and intentions and tips and tricks to actually achieving them for 2021. So I think that'll be a really good one. And we're really excited for 2021. Yeah. I mean, I think it can be bigger and better. Hopefully the world starts to get itself under control. But I think, it's going to be a great year and give heaps more back and get everyone's personal finances leveled up.
So we've got a thing that we're calling the Financial Resilience Project. It's a little bit different, and it's going to come through the airways to you. And it's going to be really important. We did the first recording for this Financial Resilience Project today. And it was a really special thing that we did, and I'm really looking forward to bringing it to everyone. Thanks to the hard work of Kate, it's coming together. We're also going to launch a heap of courses for people over Christmas, because we know New Year's is a time where you can slow down and you can really put some thought into these things, but also set yourself on the path for 2021 and the year ahead. So keep an eye out for that. We'll be, if you don't already follow us on socials, please jump on there. Kate's Fire course is coming out soon. That'll probably be the first one to drop.
Yep.
Got a property course in there. We've got a tax course. Tax is a really interesting one. If you put anything tax related on YouTube, you can almost guarantee that someone's going to get really political and say how bad the world is. And then we've got an ethical investing series as well, which I imagine would be very popular with the listeners. How to invest ethically, not according to our ethics, but just according to your own. How you can do that in Australia. So that's a big episode, Kate.
Yeah.
What we just went through, but lots of great anecdotes and things to take away from the year that's been.
Yeah, I think it's been definitely a strange year, but I think we've made the most of it. And yeah, absolutely join our Facebook group. The link's in the show notes. Send any episode ideas because we're planning over the next few weeks the 2021 sort of content schedule. So that's podcast@rask.com.au. And we'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. We love hearing from everyone. So please jump into the Facebook group and say good day.
Absolutely.
Cool. Kate, as always, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for listening.